Let's talk about what does and doesn't drive change for long-term health. And so there's a few different things on both sides. But first, I want to talk about the pyramid of health. And so what do I mean by that? So when we're making changes to our health, it's important that we focus on kind of the foundation of the pyramid. Things on the foundation have the kind of the most bang for your buck, right? They do the most towards developing long-term health. They carry the most weight, if you will. As we go higher up and higher up that pyramid, those things still can create change, but it's more about optimization at the top. And so if we focus on those things at the top to the detriment of the things at the bottom, then that really doesn't support long-term health. And so that's one of the things to think about as you hear about different trends in fitness and health. Consider, is this a foundation? And is that really going to drive big lasting change? Or is it at the top and it's really about optimizing once I have all those habits there? Or maybe it's not even on the pyramid, right? It actually doesn't do anything to drive change to improve long-term health. So think about that pyramid of health. Okay, so what drives change? First is loading our tissues up. And so to get stronger, to get more resilient, we have to load our body in different ways, right? We put a stress on our body through exercise and through movement, and that influences the body and says, hey, I need to adapt, I need to get stronger, I need to get better. And so that includes both strength training and cardio, and then other forms of exercise, right? Power-based exercise, plyometric exercise, some of those things that are mimicking the demands of our favorite sports or activities, right? So that we make sure that we're well-rounded. But we've got to signal to our body where to adapt and when to adapt and how to adapt. And we do that through loading it up. So that's one of the things that drives change. Second is consistency in a planned and a measured way. And so this is all about what are those 1% changes that I can make. So if you're not familiar with the story, I'll go over it really quick. This is of the British cycling team. So for years and years and years, decades, they lost all the time. Things weren't going well. And they got a new coach and he implemented some changes. And he called this idea the aggregation of marginal gains. And so it was this idea of making these like little small tweaks, these 1% changes, 1% better. And over time, all of those added up. And eventually they started to win and win and win. They got better and better and better. And it wasn't from this just huge sweeping change. It was just these 1% changes done consistently over time, right? It's that effect of compounding, building up and building up over time. And so consistency in a measured and a planned way. 3 is building strong habits. And so a lot of times when we go to make change, we have high motivation, which is great, right? We can use that to kind of jumpstart the process. But what we often fail to do is to establish a scaffold of habits that can support life when it's imperfect, which life is imperfect. And so often our motivation is high, we start the thing, and then motivation dips because it's a fatigable resource. And then when that dips and we don't have that structure of habits, we go back to the way things were. And so building strong habits, things like getting consistent sleep, eating in a way to fuel yourself well for your lifestyle, for exercise, for recovery. Again, what matters is the training that we can recover from. Am I doing things that help me manage stress in an appropriate way? Do I get consistent sleep? All of those things. What can I put in place to make those into habits so it doesn't have to be a decision? Am I finally going to get to bed on time? Oh, this time when I eat, am I going to fuel myself better? If we can give some structure to those and begin to change our environment, then that takes a lot of the pressure off of us, puts it onto the environment, puts it onto habit, and that's a lot better at supporting us through those long-term changes. And then fourth, are we doing things that are sustainable? So often we go intensity first, right? I'm going to hit it hard and we burn ourselves out or we get injured. And so find things that are doable for you, that are sustainable, so that you can keep this change going. This goes back to that habit of consistency. But what's going to be sustainable? What can you do day in and day out? And along with this goes the principle of always something. So often when we can't do the perfect workout or we can't do things perfect, then we drop off on everything and get that all or nothing thinking. But if we think always something, right? Well, maybe I'll just I'll do a few push-ups, or I'll do a few squats, or you know what, I didn't get to bed right on time, but I can go to bed right now and still get quite a bit of sleep, right? How can we do always something on the positive side of keeping up with our habits? So what doesn't drive change? So a lot of the things that we tend to do for like a lot of the manual therapies and things that we do for recovery actually don't have much of a change, cause much of a physical change. So things like massage or stretching, the kind of the static stretching in the way that it's typically done, foam rolling, some of the different things like that. Not that they're bad, but that they don't change tissue, right? They don't load the tissue in a way to cause change, and so they're just kind of feel good and temporary. And so again, it's not that we can't do them, but is our time and our energy better spent somewhere else, focusing on the things that really drive change. Two, really it's kind of the the opposite of some of those former ones. So inconsistency, right? Am I stopping and starting and stopping and starting? What our body needs is consistent signaling to cause an adaptation. And so if I'm just always stopping and starting, if I'm inconsistent, if I just hit it really hard and then fall off, the body's not going to change, right? It's not a sustained enough signal to get the body to change. Three, and this goes along with this, is kind of the anti-habits, right? Am I not building strong habits? Am I trying to throw everything onto just motivation alone? Eventually that's going to run out. And so have I developed poor sleeping habits, or poor recovery habits, or poor movement habits, or any of those things? Are those going to stand in my way of again, the consistency? And so these kind of all go together. What's going to prevent me from doing things that are sustainable, doing things that are consistent, doing things that are building better habits, right? What's kind of the anti-version of all those things that support change? Not loading the body, right? Resting away an injury is not going to change things. We just don't heal as strong, and then we typically go back to that high intensity, and we do that cycle over and over again. And so how do I keep moving? How do I develop habits in a way that's going to let me do that sustainable over the long term, right? Months and years and decades, right? Because when we're trying to make long-term changes to our health, we want to do things, again, that are consistent, that are sustainable, that load our bodies, and that shift us from motivation alone to habits, so that we don't have to burn all this energy in trying to support that change, and that it becomes a lot more easy for us to do.